What's up, Illusioneers? It's the Wizard here, and today we're going to be taking a look at my top 5 decks of Illusionist playing cards. Now, this particular top 5 will be a bit different from all of my others in that we're going to be taking it from the top down. Now, for those of you wondering why this is just a top 5, it's only a top 5 because so many Illusionist decks are also Madison decks. So, my other 5 picks will be shown in my top 5 Madison decks video, which is coming soon. Now, in first place, I have put the Royal Reserve playing cards produced by Ellusionist in collaboration with Jeremy Griffith. Now, the black edition is limited, but the white edition was not so much. However, both versions make the cut simply because both tucks have the same deck inside, and I'm a huge fan of the message this sends, especially with this very simple tuck. And for Magicians, there's a double face card, which is a huge rarity, a double backer, 2 almost identical jokers, and the back design has casino-like inspirations. This back is also marked, however, I'm not going to reveal the system, only to say that if you can think along the style that David Blaine used, the style on this deck is very different, but at the same time, somewhat similar. Now, looking at the faces, here is a look at the Ace of Spades, and this deck does have Squeezer, Pips, and gold for the red cards, which I'm definitely a huge fan of, especially because the red cards have a very stunning gold on black combo. And of course, this deck does handle like a dream, with a traditional cut pencil-thin borders, a stock a bit thicker than that of a Bicycle Standard, and all around, I love this deck. And, of course, as some of my longtime followers will no doubt have guessed this was coming, is the Artifis deck. Now, of course, the tuck is a glossy tuck, which, to be honest, I'm not the biggest of fans of. However, the message of the art to conceal art that goes hand in hand with this deck cannot be overlooked. Now, looking inside this deck at what you get, of course, there's the double backer, there's 2 jokers, one of which having a reveal on it, and the back design is simply stunning. I love the ornate patterns, and I love the way it strikes out, especially on this deck's very thin borders. And the custom faces and pips on this deck are second to none. These have got to be, hands down, my favorite custom faces and pips that I have seen to date on a single deck of cards, and it's a design that I truly do love. And of course, this deck handles as any other Illusionist deck printed by the USPCC does, so I'm not going to say too much more on that. And this is the Ace of Spades, which again is one of my favorite aces of all time. And in third place, we have the Keepers deck, created by both Oban Jones and Adam Wilbur. Now, personally, I have no preference between the green, the red, or the blue, except to say that the red is marked, the green has no tuck, and the blue is just a normal deck. Now, the tuck case is definitely a very simple and minimal design, but it is also crafted for Magicians as a potential alternate to the Bicycle Standard just because of the familiar design, which I definitely am a huge fan of. And also having a duplicate Queen of Hearts and 2 identical jokers is a good thing to have as a Magician. Also, the pencil-thin borders and the Cartamundi B9 stock and finish makes these decks a true joy to handle. However, I do slightly prefer the USPCC version simply because I never had the issue where the top card would be bowed over time along with the bottom card. But that's just a complaint I have universally with Cartamundi's decks with their B9 stock and finish. Aside from that, this deck handles just as you would expect almost any other Illusionist deck to handle, which is a huge plus. And of course, The faces are more or less just Bicycle standard faces, but nonetheless, that is definitely something that adds to this deck. And here is a look at the Ace of Spades. Now, in 4th place, I have put the Little House of Horrors playing cards, and this is definitely a unique deck for Ellusionist, especially since the tuck is very colorful, Halloween theme, and of course, is a side-loading tuck. Now, taking the cards out, I definitely love that this deck has a double backer and the 2 identical jokers to complement. Now, setting those aside, here's a quick look at the back design, which is a favorite of mine for cardistry, simply because there's 1 fanning pattern there and a 2nd just there. Also, this deck was printed on the Cartamundi B9 stock and finish, so this deck will handle as you might expect. And of course, all of the faces and all of the pips are fully custom, which is a huge benefit to this particular deck. Now, in 5th place, I have put the Ellusionist Talons deck. Now, this deck definitely reminds me of a Madison deck, but less all the Madison markings all over it, which is a nice touch. Here is a quick look at the front, sides, and back of the tuck, which offers a quick glimpse of the back design. And of course, open these up, and you'll see right away there are 2 identical jokers, a double-backed playing card, and of course, a spare 9 of spades, which is a huge bonus. And I definitely like this simple yet stunning back. Now, this deck was printed on a crushed stock by the USPCC, and all of the faces and all of the pips are fully custom. And here is a quick glimpse of the Ace of Spades. Now, that being said, this deck will definitely handle as you might expect, and it is truly a joy of a deck to use, although I definitely would not put it higher than number 5. And of course, this would not be a proper top 5 without an honorable mention to Peter McKinnon's LTD deck. Now, this deck, as you can see, has definitely been worked over while it has been in my possession, and it is by far one of my favorite worker decks, with the simple tuck case, the added bonus of a double backer, the 2 identical jokers, and this very simple back design. The only reason why this didn't rank any higher is because the borders on this deck are very thick, which for me, as you can see, is no easy task to fan and make it look good. So even though the faces kind of make up for it, the back design just kills it for me. However, I do love this crimson and silver colorway, and it's a huge plus, in my opinion, for this particular deck, which of course makes it worthy of an honorable mention, and perhaps even direct competition to the Talons deck. And there is a look at the Ace of Spades. Now, if you're curious about seeing these decks reviewed in full, the links to those full reviews will be in the description down below, and you'll learn a lot more about each of these decks there. So, if you see anything you like, be sure to check out the full review.